And joining us now with their take on Governor Rick Snyder vetoing legislation for guns to be carried at schools or churches is Rick Ector, a firearm instructor and member of Michigan's open carry law.
Also with us, the Reverend Wendell Anthony, president of the Detroit branch of the NAACP. And gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. And first of all, Rick, let's start with your reaction to the governor's veto. I got the sense that had this not happened Friday, he probably would not have vetoed. That's just me guessing, but he probably would not have vetoed that bill, do you think?
Well, I want to thank you for having me here. Yes, those of us in the gun rights community, we're disappointed that the governor did, in fact, veto Senate Bill 59. We thought it was a great opportunity to expand greater opportunities to safeguard people in these areas that they call gun-free zones, which is highlighted by what happened this past weekend in Connecticut.
Well, you focus on the gun-free zone on the open carry, but I think what people really didn't like was the idea that concealed weapons would be allowed into schools and churches.
Well, here's the thing that's been mostly misunderstood. Under current Michigan law, it is legal for concealed pistol license holders to open carry in those areas, such as churches and schools under current law. For example, if I was walking my middle school child to school through the neighborhood, which, at times could get rather, challenging and dicey, crime-wise, and once I made it to the school and I wanted to cross over onto school property as a concealed pistol license holder, I would be in violation of the law. So what I have to do is unconceal and open carry that firearm. With the bill that the governor just vetoed, basically you're not changing whether people can carry guns there, you're changing the way how they carry guns there. Instead of it being open, I would be concealed. And here's the greater part, the greatest promise of the bill. The people who would be there would be better trained because they would be forced to get 8 additional hours of training and spend additional time on the firing range.
Reverend Anthony, I want you to weigh in on this. You are a minister in your church in the city of Detroit. I mean, just the thought of someone being in a house of worship with a firearm is frightening to a lot of people.
Carolyn, you called it. I mean, suppose you don't like my sermon. You're going to pull out your pistol and fire on the pulpit? First of all, I think that the governor did the right thing. We just don't think it went far enough. He also signed into law a couple of bills that eliminated restrictions in terms of how you could, the process for obtaining weapons. He also signed into law the ability for states that are contiguous to Michigan to be able to cross-correlate, and you can go and get your permits and be valid there. I think the situation in Connecticut did inspire this situation. It's unfortunate that we have to have these kinds of situations. We're not against people being able to bear arms. The Constitution guarantees that. But Stephen, when it comes to having a weapon where you have 30 and 60 and 100 bullets in one clip, only the Army needs that. I don't need that. You don't need that.
We only have about 20 seconds, but that really comes down to the crux of it. Do we need assault rifles, or does the right to bear arms stop at a handgun?
Well, 20 seconds, hopefully I can get it all in. But here's the thing. When you classify what an assault weapon is, we don't know what that is. A lot of people like to try
an assault weapon that can really destroy your body.
Well, any firearm improperly used by a deranged individual or someone who is a criminal can be used dangerously, no different than an automobile. But to address his point real quick, the one point he made about people not liking a sermon and shooting, that will never come to fruition. What we're really worried about is individuals who will go to these churches and will sit in on the service and wait until the collection plate comes down the aisle, and then they announce a robbery, and that has happened several times in Detroit.
People in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, never thought they would have a situation like they had the other day, too. So prevention is better than waiting until the intervention. So we just salute the governor for that. We wish he would veto some other stuff in addition to vetoing
And a lot of people have talked about the difference between assault weapons and then just a regular bullet. Even on World News Tonight, they were talking about the damage from an assault weapon and the bullet from an assault weapon versus...
Yeah, we know what an assault weapon is. Cha-ching, and one of them long things, and we know what that is. Absolutely.
That's not the definition of an assault weapon either. Here's the greater thing. The greater damage is that when you take a look at this whole incident, we're taking an individual who was clearly mentally deranged. It's against the law for someone who has mental issues to own or possess a firearm. This guy went to his own mother's house. Who blows their mother's face off? No one. This guy was clearly crazy. He stole her firearms. He stole her car. He drove 5 miles and said he was going to shoot up a bunch of school children in a gun-free zone. If we're going to ban stuff, let's ban gun-free zones. It just presents an opportunity for defenseless children.
eliminate some of the guns that we don't need, and let's do a holistic approach, which is a part of what we do like what the governor said.
We thank
the clock is already. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break here, but we'll be over here talking. So we'll be right back.